This is an overview presentation of the Thaketa Climate Adaptation Pilot Project, a community-based approach to climate adaptation, which is currently being implemented in Thaketa, a township in Yangon, Myanmar. My name is Gregor van Essen. I'm Managing Director of the Water Agency, and I'm the Project Director of the Thaketa Climate Adaptation Project. In the first section, I will give you some background on how this pilot project was established. The project started in 2018 when the Chief Minister of the Yangon region asked us to help the city with some of the critical challenges they were facing related to water and climate. As a major delta city, these challenges were concerning both urban water challenges, such as lack of clean drinking water, flooding, lack of education and innovation on water, and poor water governance, as well as challenges related to water logistics, such as sustainable development of ports, river navigation, dredging, and river tunneling. Responding to his request, the Water Agency, together with the government of the Netherlands, formed a coalition of partners, local international partners with the expertise and experience needed to address these challenges, ranging from urban planning and landscape architecture to engineering, community engagement, education, and construction. One of the first projects we worked on, and a top priority for Yangon, was addressing the concerns related to the impact of increasing climate extremes on Yangon. More intense and unpredictable rain in the monsoon, causing flooding, and longer periods of extreme drought in the dry season, causing severe water shortages. As the impact of this is getting worse every year, the city needs to find ways to adapt to climate change. In addition to taking action from the government, improving water supply and flood protection infrastructure, the government is also starting to understand that the government alone cannot solve this. So they asked us to do a pilot working together with the local communities to involve them, residents, local business owners, in finding solutions. So a community level climate adaptation approach. For this, they asked that we use best practices from the Netherlands, but also that solutions should be practical, tangible, innovative, and scalable. As a target area for our project, they assigned us to the Thaketa township, which is a township with a lot of economic potential, but is also one of the most flood-prone and water-scarce townships of the city. In the next section, I will give you a brief overview of what we have done to prepare for the pilot project. Between November 2018 and July 2019, we worked on several important activities that help us create a strong foundation, including building relationships with the local government stakeholders, introducing ourselves to the local communities, explaining them who we are and how we want to help them, doing a lot of research and analysis on the local problems, establishing a project structure and organization, and applying for the necessary funds and resources to run a pilot project. Like I said, we did a lot of field research to understand the problems and the scope, potential scope for the pilot project. As we did that, we identified that one specific neighborhood in Thaketa called Ward 5 gave us a lot of potential for a pilot. The neighborhood was severely impacted by flooding in the monsoon and lack of clean water in the dry season. But very importantly, they have a very active community with a strong community leader who wants to improve the livelihood for his people. So we decided that this was a good area for us to focus on for the pilot. And that's where we do our work at the moment. During the preparation period, like I said, we spent a lot of time to meet with the community members to learn about their problems and ideas. And also we meet with many of the government officials directly involved with the Thaketa area. Also interesting to note that during the preparation phase, we also organized a special program for young water leaders, so students and young professionals, for them to contribute their ideas for the project. This was a really good opportunity, both for the local stakeholders, government, and community, and the private companies involved with our consortium to learn a lot about each other and learn about the neighborhood, collect data and information. So that was a very valuable part of our preparation program. After we completed the preparation stages in July 2019, we wrote the project plan. We defined the goals for the pilot, both the goals at the level of the community itself, strengthening the climate adaptive capabilities of the community. But we also set goals for the government, Yangon government, particularly looking at how a pilot at a small scale can also generate input for new water policy, for urban design and planning guidelines, and potentially new public-private collaboration and financing models. In the last stage of the preparation, we submitted our project plan to the Yangon government for approval and funding. And in the last step, we also secured additional funding from the Dutch government and the private sector. With all that, we were ready to start the work in January 2020. So what did we do in the first phase of the pilot project? Obviously, we had to do some work in setting up the project organization with our local and international experts. We set up working groups with the Yangon City Development Committee and the community. We expanded still a lot on our initial field work with more in-depth research and analysis, for example, on water quality and the drainage system. We did a lot of in-depth surveying of the area, both the physical environment like houses, streets and parks, but also socioeconomically. So how do people in the community live? How do they work, spend their time? How do they use water? So based on this, we prioritized the technical and non-technical interventions to be implemented for the first phase, keeping in mind that we were starting just before the monsoon. So the interventions focused on reducing flooding were prioritized for the first phase. Here you see the project team that we put together with a broad range of local and international experts. Very importantly, we have a strong local-based implementation team, so in Yangon. So we never depend on experts having to fly in and out of the country. Then, like I said, we have a working group with the Yangon City Development Committee, and we also have various working groups within the local community. This is an overview of the interventions that we implemented. So this is actually the ward that you see. This is a map of the ward, Ward 5. So the main categories of interventions, which I'll explain a little bit more later, is improving the drainage system to reduce flooding, improving access to clean, safe water, affordable water for households. So we introduced various rainwater concepts. We do a lot of community awareness and education to help people better understand the importance of clean and safe water. And last but not least, we implemented a broad range of measuring and monitoring tools that help us and the community to see the impact of what we do. So going through these in with some additional information, here you see the pictures from the work we did on the back alley drains. So these are the drains that run behind the houses, which cause a lot of flooding because they are clogged with waste. There's a lot of sediment that stays in these drains. They were also not very well built, so we fixed them and we placed covers on the drains to prevent more waste to fall in. And as you can see, this was really work that we did together with the community who we supported in doing this work. Rainwater harvesting was quite a success for the first phase. Not a lot of people do it yet, and if they do it, they don't do it well. So we help them to see how they do it in a good way. And actually people already find that it is saving them a lot of money from buying bottled water. They are also pumping less groundwater for than before. And we calculated that for an average household, it can save almost $900 per year, which is a lot in Myanmar. So we also install water filters so that people can use the water for cooking, cleaning, and drinking. And in case people do not have big water tanks, they can also get a water pot, as you can see in that small picture on the right-hand side. That actually has a filter built in, so they can also use water, for example, from the lake or from groundwater for cooking and drinking. Besides the residential rainwater harvesting, we also created community rainwater harvesting systems at the library and the tea house. At the library, actually, we make this into an education center where people can learn about water conservation. And at the tea house, the rainwater is also used to cool the roof when it is very hot outside. So reducing heat stress, which is another important use of rainwater. Awareness and education are very important for our project. We have developed many different tools to inform people, involve them, get their opinions. We have a dedicated community page on Facebook, which is only for residents themselves. We have a public education page on water and climate, on which we share many basic facts about water, public health, climate change. And we have a page on the Myanmar Water Portal, which is really to share our project with local and international water professionals. We're spending a lot of time on capacity building, particularly for the government, so the staff, the civil servants employed by the Yangon City Development Committee. So to empower them to take our work forward after the pilot. And as I said, we have implemented a broad range of measuring and monitoring tools to understand what impact we have with different interventions. But it's also very important for the community to see how the water flows around their neighborhood. So actually seeing what is happening is making them better aware of how they can respond. Unexpectedly, when we started the project, but of course we were facing also the consequences of the COVID pandemic. In this ward, there are some very vulnerable communities living who have no access to water at all. And promoting good hygiene, of course, can reduce infection significantly. So we did a special campaign for them in helping them with masks and soap and water in response to the COVID pandemic. So that is a summary of the phase one that we just completed in October. And we've just now gone underway with the second phase. So very briefly, in the second phase, we're both aiming to scale and replicate the successful interventions from phase one, such as the rainwater harvesting. We still have a range of new interventions that we are planning to pilot. In general, it's very important for us in the second stage that we really work even more closely with the community and the government. So really doing the work together in analyzing, designing, and implementing, so as to enable them to take the work forward after the pilot is finished. An important element I want to mention is that based on the principles of the Amsterdam Rainproof Program, in which it is recognized that the government cannot do everything themselves and everyone has to contribute to climate adaptation. So that includes residents and local businesses and schools and financial services, medical services. So in the second phase of the project, we will build on the success of the first phase to get more parties interested and engaged. Anyone who can make a contribution to the project, whether it's microfinancing, providing equipment or plumbing services, water quality testing. There are a lot of contributions that different parties in the city can make to improve climate adaptation. An interesting example is, for example, the University of Yangon. They have designed a special living lab on climate adaptation. So they are using our Thaketa pilot project really as a learning environment for their students and teachers to gain practical skills. The last point is that due to the COVID-19 situation, we are still expecting travel limitations within Yangon and internationally. So we have teamed up with UN Habitat to create a complete digital model of our pilot in the popular Minecraft game. So we now have a tool to collaborate virtually with the community and the government and our international experts, really walking through the ward as if we are there and using that as a way to discuss our plans. This concludes the introduction presentation about the Thaketa Climate Adaptation Pilot Project. Thank you.